Caron Butler joining us, part of Fox Sports Radio's family. Great, huge announcement was yesterday. Chris Mannix from Yahoo Sports who joined us yesterday. Also, he and Tough Juice going to do a show together every Sunday, noon to 3. Is that noon to 3 Eastern time? That's getting up early in the morning, so it's 9 to noon. That's two guys. Tough Juice obviously covers the NBA for the folks at Turner. That's the players only Tuesday night. That was last night? Yeah, Tuesday night. I was watching last night.
I was in Boston last night.
Were you really?
Man, that finish was crazy.
And then you hopped on the last flight out or what? Or first flight?
On first thing this morning.
First thing smoking?
Landed, and you're the first guy I see.
All right, I want to talk to you about I want to talk to you about the game last night. But anyway, you can check him out on Turner and then listen to him here on Fox Sports Radio. Let's talk about the Thunder before we get to the ending of that game. Look, I know there's been some ups and downs. I know Paul George said some great things early in the year, but they're about where we thought they would be, and they're not only where you thought they'd be, like the 4th seed in the West, but this is with Kawhi out most of the year. This is with the Warriors having all kinds of injuries and just being disinterested. Like, kind of interesting. I can't figure out whether they've underachieved, overachieved, or rightfully achieved.
They're exactly where, me personally, where I thought they would be. Still trying to struggle to find their identity. But at the same time, I think Russell Westbrook has done an amazing job of balancing the scoring, the rebounding, and the dominance of playing with two superstars. Still in Paul George and Carmelo Anthony.
Is Carmelo Anthony still a superstar?
Yeah, he's still a star in this league. Like, he's more than capable. And the thing that's, interesting is that he's not being featured no longer. And it's necessary because you have Paul George and Russell playing at an amazing pace. So, he needs to be that guy that needs to play, somewhat more with that second unit where he can massage the ball and do his thing. So he needs to be out there with Grant, Felton, and he can be featured, and he's still capable of doing certain things. I mean, he averaged 20-plus points last season. He's still averaging, I think, 16.5-plus right now, and he's playing with, Russell Westbrook, majority of the minutes, Steven Adams, and Paul George.
And as it lines out now, they would be on a collision course with the Houston Rockets. Like, I think of all the kind of genius things, and I'm not sure how intentional or unintentional, I want to talk about the Warriors, but the idea that the Warriors wouldn't have to see the Thunder unless the Thunder go through the Rockets, I think would be perfect for that team because the Thunder are a team that have beaten them, and the Thunder are a team that can play big when they play small and kind of rough them up.
Man, listen, the Thunder is a scary team if they're clicking on all cylinders. But, Coach Donovan has said it. When we sat down last night, he has said, most importantly, they want to be playing good defensively. Offensively, you got players that can win you a series. You got Paul George, who's a superstar, never been the number 2 guy, been the number 1 guy in Indiana his whole career. He can carry you through a series. We know Russell Westbrook can carry you through a series. Carmelo Anthony is more than capable of having those moments, those vintage moments, and carrying you through a series. And that's scary. You got 3 guys that can carry you through a series. And then Houston, they're playing amazingly well. And the one thing that benefits them is that they have a ton of confidence. And Chris Paul is playing amazing. He's healthy. James Harden is the MVP, second to none. This is his year. He's playing exceptionally well. So it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes up in the Western Conference.
When you were playing, was there in season? It feels like this is very, very recent, and some of it is kind of ESPN doubling down and going all in on the NBA, as opposed to in previous years. It wasn't. It's kind of peaked in popularity the last 4 or 5 years. I don't remember there being this much season-long discussion over the MVP. You played in the league for a decade. Was it like this when you played?
I think it was more so. So on the back end of my career, you had Steph Curry that had the out-of-body performance season where he was just clicking on all cylinders, making everything. And LeBron James is always in the discussion. So, like, over the last 3-4 years, you have seen the discussion starting early as the first quarter of the season where you're talking about the Greek Freak. You're talking about James Harden immediately because he's playing extremely well. You're talking about Dame Lillard now in the back end of the season, and you're still talking about year 15, what LeBron's been capable of doing. His performance has been just amazing, averaging a triple-double since All-Star break. Still shooting the ball amazingly well, adding dimensions to his game. But, this season in particular, I think it's hard to say that James Harden is not the MVP.
I'll throw a name out there you haven't mentioned is Anthony Davis. I mean, Anthony Davis has led the league in scoring in the second half of the year since the All-Star break. and his team is playing better than this without DeMarcus Cousins. And look, I'm with you. I think that Harden's going to win it, not just because of his performances this year, but you could have seen him win it 2 out of the last 3 years anyway, right?
Easy.
And his team is going to finish with the best record likely in the NBA. So I'm with you whether he's going to win it, but how close should it actually be with him and Anthony Davis?
You know what? I feel like it's James Harden, and then now you got LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Damian Lillard. That's the next wave. That's the next conversation. I think we take LeBron for granted because he's been doing this consistently for so long. Seeing the rise of Anthony Davis and the Pelicans, the resurgence of, playing winning basketball and having a shot to be in the playoffs. It seems like they're going to make it this season in spite of losing a guy like Boogie. That was something that was devastating, but they all rallied around him. They really did, and they're doing it because of him. They're like, look, we're playing inspired basketball because of you. And then Dame Lillard I don't think that anyone will question that he's a star or superstar again in this league. A guy that had been, overlooked for so long. He's a perennial all-star, one of the best young spots in this game of basketball.
Caron Butler joining us on the Doug Gottlieb Show. You won an NBA championship, but I think people remember you were hurt during the NBA championship, right? And that was supposed to be like a death blow because of your leadership on the floor. But there was something special. Like, you look at Dirk's career, as good as it's been, he's had like 9 or 10 first-round exits in his career. That year was different. That year was special. Can you make any comparisons, as obviously aside from the injury to you, that and the Houston year, to which Houston's a team, D'Antoni's lost early, James Harden's lost early, Chris Paul, his teams have lost early because of injury, to everything kind of coming together and fitting right at the right time. Golden State's hurt, some of these things, and it being a dream year for the Rockets.
Listen, I think that, timing is everything. And I think camaraderie and having momentum is key. You don't want to fizz out too early, and you don't want to do it too soon. So, like, you look at what Houston is doing, and they're playing their best basketball right now, and hopefully they can keep that momentum going into the second half of the season. Right now, you look at the Golden State Warriors, who's everyone's favorite. The injuries and things like that, like, we all know that they're talented enough to win and run through the Western Conference and be right back in the finals. But chemistry and rhythm and all that is very, very important. And right now you have 4 All-Stars, guys that's not out there playing. You question the health of Steph Curry right now, even though that they say he's back to full contact. Kevin Durant, that's extremely important. He has to be 100%. He's the guy that you go through in the half court. Obviously, they play off of him, and he draws the double teams, and you got the shot makers and Clay and all the rest of the guys knocking shots down on the perimeter. But it's going to be intriguing to see. And last but not least, you look at the Houston Rockets, they believe that they can beat anyone.
Right.
The true story of the underdog, Chris Paul, never been into a conference finals. This is something he wants so desperately. And, he's tuned out the noise, but he definitely heard all the things. And he wants to prove all the doubters wrong.
Caron Butler joining us in studio. You got a chance to see Boston up close last night, right? That was crazy game where Oklahoma City could have ended at the free throw line. They didn't. I guess Boston screwed up the play, and Moore still ends up hitting a crazy game-winning 3 at the end of a game. But remember, this is a Boston team that haven't had Gordon Hayward the entire season. Kyrie missed last night because of
Jaylen Brown.
No Jaylen Brown. How do they do it? Like, it's easy to say, well, they got Brad Stevens, but like, come on, yes, coaching does in fact matter. Some of it is players combined with coaching and belief. How have they been able to kind of maintain this pace in spite of the fact haven't had Hayward and they've had so many other injuries?
Yeah, sitting down with Coach Brad Stevens yesterday, he had said that point of emphasis is going to be playing with sides. So you got Greg Monroe, you got Al Horford, and you got big guys with length, and then you got Rozier. They're going to play through those guys as much as possible. And then the development of Tatum, he's been amazing.
Yeah.
A rookie, but a guy that's, seizing the moment, capitalizing on the moment. And I think his development, during the time that Kyrie Irving and those guys are down and out, is going to pay extremely dividends going forward.
If you were a betting man, where does LeBron James play next year?
I think Los Angeles. I really do. I think Los Angeles, depending on what the exit looked like, this season, I don't have them winning the championship, possibly making it to the finals again, but the road is going to be extremely tough. The reason why I say that is because, with all due respect, you look at Jordan Clarkson, you look at, Nance and all those guys, the additions, these guys were second string guys on their respective teams coming in. So all of a sudden you're going to put them in a space where now they have to be consistent on a contender. And I just think that's too quick of a light switch to turn on for a young nucleus. And, it's demands playing with a guy like LeBron James, and the second best playmaker, LeBron always had that playmaker. In Miami, he had Dwayne Wade, a healthy Dwayne Wade. Now he goes back to Cleveland. Early, he had Kyrie Irving, a guy that can close and get his shot, create for others. And then now you look at the second best playmaker on that squad, it's probably Jordan Clarkson. Can he be relied upon in the biggest moments? And I love his game. Huge fan of Jordan Clarkson, but this is a different beast. This is a different animal.
Trae Young declares for the NBA draft.
Before you even say anything, I'm happy he did. I really am, because this is a guy that had us in all season, and we can talk about them not playing extremely well down the stretch or whatever, but Trae Young was the end all be all for that team. He was a guy that brought electric, this flash and flavor to that team and to college basketball. He became must-watch television, all season long. So, I'm happy for him, happy for his family. Definitely will be in the top 15, I believe, and looking forward to watching him develop on the fly.
Does that work in the NBA?
His game?
Yep.
Yeah, I think he's a guy that is going to have to develop. But the thing that's super intriguing about him, you think about the UConn guys, and you think about Kemba Walker, you think about smaller guards that's able to create space and shoot off the dribble. He has unlimited range, probably have a lack of size a little bit, and he's going to build on his strength and things like that. But he just have it. Whatever it is, he has it, and he's special. He's a special talent, so he's going to be okay going forward.
But let's examine the Kemba Walker. So look, Kemba, I always thought Kemba coming in, I thought he could be at his best in the Jamal Crawford role, right? That was what I thought. That was what I thought his ceiling was. He's obviously exceeded that, becoming an All-Star.
Yeah.
But I thought you put Kemba Walker where you're like, hey man, don't worry about running any team. Just 25, 30 minutes a game. You just go be you.
Get buckets.
Go get buckets. Don't worry about anything else. And because he has a different gear than most guys have, case in point, his last jump shot at Madison Square Garden in the Big East Championship, where he made the kid from Pittsburgh fall down. Timber. Right? Like Kemba. The reason the step back works is you're so scared of that first step that you retreat, and then all of a sudden your legs just go. They're just dead. I know that a jump shot can also allow you to get space, because what in the NBA called gravity, right? Where, everybody's just drawn to you because they're scared of that jump shot. But the numbers were bad. I mean, I read them on air yesterday. Since February 1st, like 35% from 2, 26 from 3. And I know early in the year he was at a ridiculous level, but it's like you're trying to be Steph, and everybody wants him to be Steph, but he's just not Steph. And my fear is, or maybe the reality is, you go to the NBA and you've played this one way where you've always had the ball and always been able to, either you try and do that, and you know how vets are. Vets are like, young fella, pass the ball. Or he tries to change his game, and that's even maybe harder to do.
Two things. If you're in the lottery, one, you're going to go to a team that's going to feature you. So he's not going to have to worry about too many vets telling him, like, don't do this or don't do that, as you saw with Alonzo Ball this season with the Lakers. Luol Deng and those guys was sitting down watching him develop on the fly. So there's going to be the same thing with Trae Young. And then also, if you look at what you touched on, the spacing, and now people are keying in on all his strengths. And then once he gives up the ball, you have to think about the talent that he's also playing with. So the talent pool goes up a notch. He's going to be playing with elite talented players, guys that, been the man on their team, whether it's college or, had a little season in the NBA, know how to play, specialize in making shots or being playmakers or what have you. So he's going to be highlighted and featured in a different way. Therefore, he's going to be able to be successful.
One of the things you guys had with UConn, there's two parts to it. Calhoun would always tell me, I'd tell guys to go, but it wasn't necessarily based upon whether they're drafted, but you got to focus on getting that second contract, right? He was big in because the second contract is the generational wealth.
Yeah.
Is the big money. But there was demands that you played defense. And those demands weren't made to him this year. How hard is it to, especially in a league, you cover the league for Turner, Caron Butler joining us. Check him out noon to 3 Eastern every Sunday here on Fox Sports Radio. Now in the NBA, everybody wants to switch. Obviously don't switch with Steph. They kind of hide him with Golden State. But he's smaller than Steph. He's younger than Steph coming out. And there hasn't been the demands on him to play defense. How difficult an adjustment is that?
It's going to be a difficult adjustment, but it's an adjustment that, that's what it's all about, developing. How many guys do you know in the NBA are two-way players right now? There's a handful of them. And we highlight the guys that do play on the defensive end. We talk about Kawhi Leonard. We talk about Klay Thompson. We talk about, these guys, that's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
You don't supposed to just be an athlete. You're supposed to play both sides of the floor. You're supposed to be offensively sound, supposed to have a skill set on defense as well. You're supposed to be have a niche. His niche right now is he can make shots, he can make plays, and he has no ceilings. His future is extremely bright. I love what I'm seeing out of him, and he's relatively young.
Yep.
So he has a bright future.
All right, DeAndre Ayton or Marvin Bagley? Bagley's more of a face-up four who can score some in the post. Ayton, you talk about two-way guy, can help you as a shot blocker, can also shoot the ball and score in the post. You have the number one pick. Who do you take and why?
I'm going to take Ayton. And the reason why I say that is, I think you didn't really get a chance to see the real Arizona team because of all the controversy and adversity they was going through, before they was fighting a battle before they even made it to the court. So now you look at a guy like Ayton, athletically, he's off the charts. He's a man. He's a grown man, playing amongst, children this season, to say the least. And I feel like his upside is, he has no ceilings. And, going forward, I think he's going to be special.
It's really crazy, though, on how there seems to be the rebirth of the big man in the NBA. And I'll be fascinated to see how they can adjust because the officiating now helps the guards, right? You can't touch guys in the perimeter. They rarely call an illegal screen, so you can run up and act like Clint Capella last night. Act like you're setting a screen on one side, flip it, and set it on the other side. It's really confusing but they haven't done the same thing for bigs, and yet you see Joel Embiid, you see Jokic, you see Karl Towns, you see both the bigs in New Orleans, all performing really, really well without the help of the officiating. It feels though like that we're very, very close to the kind of rebirth of the big man carrying you to an NBA championship.
Yeah, we saw this. I was watching Kobe's Moose Cage, and he has said that this could be the death of the big man or the resurgence of the big man because the game is so perimeter oriented, and it doesn't cater to what we traditionally seen for years with the big man. Operating in the post, getting the contacts. It's more pace. It's not more grinded out. It's tempo. So if you have guys that can come in and, add that dimension and make it, something super intriguing to watch, then it's gonna help the case because it's all about, ratings. It's all about viewership. It's all about excitement. And, people don't want to look at a game that's this mucked up. They want to look at pace. They want to look at high scoring. And they want to see excitement.
Yeah, I still think that, yes, they want to see the threes and the dunks and the excitement, but there also what is something to, like you go to an NBA game and there's a 7-footer going against another 7-footer, and these guys it's not like in the 70s, early 80s. Like these dudes are super, super athletic, right? And there has to be a way, but it is mucked up when it's down there, right? I mean, they're just beating the crap out of each other. It's really, really hard to even make a move in the low post. That's why teams don't post up anymore. It's got to be a way in which they can tighten up the officiating to loosen it up down there.
Yeah, and what's super intriguing now with the NBA, it's all about space and it's about real estate because everything is perimeter oriented. So you want to give guys that space to operate and play that tempo and have the exciting plays where you're going downhill, getting into the paint and forcing your thrust offensively on the defensive guy and having the exciting plays. But if somebody's always clogged up in the paint, it takes away from a lot of things.
All right, he grinded. He did the game last night in Boston, flew all the way here back to his home in L.A. You can see him on Turner Sports. Of course, their coverage, the Players Only night on Tuesday nights. He was covering college basketball all year, and you'll hear him on Fox Sports Radio, noon to 3 Eastern time with our man Chris Mannix. Man, that's going to be just insightful. Cannot miss radio every Sunday on Fox Sports Radio. He's Tough Juice, NBA champion Caron Butler. CB, thanks for joining us,
Respect,
man.
brother.
Pleasure is always, always ours.